Hello, bonjour, and ahoy. I'm Roger Hilton, Defense and Security Research Fellow at GLOBSEC, coming to you from Vienna, Austria. If you're like me and you've seen Greenland featured in the news recently, don't worry, you're not going crazy. From Donald Trump's 2019 proposed purchase of the island to Greenland's rediscovered geostrategic importance inside the GIUK gap, Greenland is making a comeback. Oh, and did I forget to mention all of the rare earth mineral deposits? With me today to help explain the situation in the north is Kristian Søby Kristensen, a senior researcher and deputy director at the Center for Military Studies, Department of Political Science at the University of Copenhagen, where his research focuses on Arctic security and defense. Thanks for joining us, Kristian.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. Very excited.
Now, Kristian, for the moment, you know the rivalry between Canada and Denmark is very intense over the Hans Island, so I'm glad we're able to put that aside for a moment. For all of us out here in Central and Eastern Europe, can you start by explaining the political dynamic going on right now between Nuuk and Copenhagen?
So Denmark, of course, being a very small European state that for various historical reasons have a large amount of real estate in the Arctic. So the two former colonies, the Faroe Islands and Greenland, have during the last 20 years gotten a relatively high degree of self-determination or as it is called, home rule. And the current home rule legislation is from 2009, basically stipulates that Greenland, or as we say, Nuuk, the capital of Greenland, has independent or indigenous authority over a long range of policy areas going from healthcare, education to the extraction of natural resources. The only prerogatives maintained by Copenhagen are security, defense, and foreign policy. So a wide range autonomy to the Greenlanders and the government. Furthermore, the legislation also stipulates that Denmark recognizes the Greenlandic people as a people in accordance to the UN treaty, and therefore they have the right to self-determination. So if the Greenlandic people choose to, they can succeed from the Danish realm. They can say, hey, we want independence, and the political authorities in Denmark have agreed to give them that. But still there is a tight relationship between Nuuk and Copenhagen politically, culturally, and also financially, in the sense that it's still the Danish government that pays basically half of the Greenlandic budget.
I know, so Kristian, I think it's so great that we make the distinguishing factor that the domestic issues are still done by the Greenlandic people, and then foreign and security policy is ruled out of Copenhagen. Now, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of media circulating about all of the rare earth minerals and their importance moving forward in emerging technologies. As only 50% of the budget now is domestic and the other 50% comes from Copenhagen, there have been rumblings about the development of these minerals as a viable source of finance, which would obviously make it a lot easier for them to declare independence and be viable. At the moment, Kristian, what do you think are the mechanisms or the options at the disposal of the government in Copenhagen to ensure that the status quo of Greenland remaining in Denmark remains as it is?
Yeah, well, there aren't actually that many, apart from trying to be nice guys to the Greenland politicians. So the point is that from the Greenlandic perspective, what is sort of needed in order to further the wish that is broadly shared within the Greenlandic population, I have to say, for wider, perhaps even full independence at some point in time. The prerequisite for that is more economic viability in the Greenlandic society, and the extraction of natural resources is one of the avenues to that. Meaning that getting these mining deals done, getting extractive industries up and running in Greenland is a core concern or core priority of the government in Greenland. The problem then is, as I said before, that the extraction of natural resources is a prerogative of Greenland, but foreign and security and defense policy is still the prerogative of Greenland, Denmark, right? So the neat distinction in this legislation, it collapses when natural resources become security and defense policy, which is precisely the case with the rare earth elements, in the sense that they're strategic material in and of themselves. And then the specifics about this mine in close to the city of Nuuk in the southern part of Greenland is that one of the side minerals produced is uranium.
Yes.
Which of course in and of itself is a security issue, and there's a lot of international safeguards and legislation that needs to be placed in order for Greenland, being in this instance Denmark, being able to export it. So what is a neat distinction becomes complicated, and when natural resources have a security angle, as is the case here, and then at the same time it's very high on the political agenda, and it's also very contentious issues. This particular rare earth element mine is a contentious issue in Greenlandic politics, precisely because a side effect of it is uranium population. So the Greenlandic government just fell a couple of days ago. And a substantial part of that was disagreement on how to move forward with uranium and rare earth element extraction at Nuuk. So a very complicated and contentious topic, and we haven't even started touching upon the international effect, because this is also about who controls the global supply of these rare earth elements. Up until now, as far as I understand it, has to a large extent been a Chinese monopoly. So this also from Western powers, this mining, potential mining of rare earth elements in Greenland is also seen as a potential way to break that Chinese monopoly, to ensure access to these minerals that will become even more important, both in sort of the green tech revolution, but also in high tech weapons systems and ammunition production. So there's a lot of issues that sort of meets in this concrete mining proposal that hasn't started yet, right? Nothing is getting mined there yet. We're only talking about getting to the point where mining can start.
No, I mean, like you say, Kristian, there's a lot of moving parts, both domestically and on internationally. I mean, we haven't even touched on sort of the environmental fallout that would come with a lot of these minings, who would be responsible for cleaning it up. And then, it's just a great point that you made about sort of the monopoly by the Chinese government on rare earth minerals. As it was reported, I think earlier in the week in the Financial Times, how China is now potentially exploring the restriction on exportation of rare earth minerals for this exact reason, with the Biden administration coming up. So, Kristian, we started the conversation off about the relationship between Nuuk and Copenhagen and the various possibilities domestically and on the foreign level. Looking forward 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line, how do you envision the strategic profile of Greenland looking? Are we going to go back to the normal just sort of GUI gap, or do you think it's actually going to play a larger role in transatlantic security and maybe even potentially international security?
Well, for those of us who have studied the Arctic for the last 10, 15 years, I think there was first there was, of course, the Arctic is growing in importance as the ice is melting, right?
Yes.
It's new economic opportunities, get the accessibility of the region increases, and the whole discussion we've had now about the rare earth element and the extractive industries are part of that. So and that trajectory is continuing, right? Unfortunately. The ice will keep melting, meaning that the region will open itself up more. Accessibility, yeah. Accessibility will increase. So that I think in that sense, Greenland's importance will rise. So that's sort of one Arctic game, if one can call it that. And then on the other hand, there's also the more military or strategically focused game that in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years has had an increased importance, that the temperature, if I can say that, between the West and Russia is also rising in the Arctic, and we see a very substantial increased both NATO allies, but especially American interest and military activity and military presence in the region. So looking 10 years ahead, unless very unforeseen things happen in Russia, I think both in terms of the sort of more geostrategic, but also in the geoeconomic sense, the Arctic region and Greenland within it will continue to be high on the agenda.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kristian, I think this isn't going to be the first time we have a conversation on this. And, you know, depending on when all of the COVID restrictions go, you can bring the Akavit and I can bring the Canadian Rye, and we can meet on Hans Island for interview number 2 on this. So, Kristian, thank you so much for sharing your expertise on it. And we look really forward to talking to you about this in the near future, whenever this issue raises in the news again.
I'd be happy to. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Have a great day, Kristian. We'll talk to you soon.
Same to you.